Princeton University's Keller Center, educating leaders for a technology-driven society.
The primary goal of the center is to educate leaders and to take positions in what is an increasingly technological world. And the center has many activities connected to this, but one of the activities, the very most important activities, is to expose students to leaders. And we feel like the best way to educate leaders is by example. And one of the things that we do is we have a summer internship series called Preparing to Lead, in which students go and shadow leaders in industry, and mainly in technological industry, just to see what it means to be a leader. And another major thing we do is this seminar series, where we bring in leaders in technological enterprises, leaders who have been there and know what it's about, and can sort of give us the benefit of their experiences so that we can see what it means to be a leader in a technological enterprise. And our speaker today is such a leader. Linda is the president of Advertising.com, which is a subsidiary of AOL, America Online. And she's been it and she are major forces in online advertising. She's going to tell you a bit more about that. Now, of course, we've all seen in the news in the last few days that Microsoft is making a bid for Yahoo. This is a very dynamic business, business is changing very rapidly, and the landscape one day is much different from the landscape the year before. And I'm sure that Linda, these are things that Linda has thought quite a bit about and will tell us some things about later today. Prior to becoming president of Advertising.com, Linda was executive vice president of AOL's audience business. Maybe she'll tell us a bit about what that is. Responsible for strategy, finance, and business development. She's also held several other positions at AOL, two senior vice president roles. One is for corporate strategic and financial planning, and another for acquisitions and strategic investments, which is, I think, what brought her to her current position. She was the driving force that led to AOL's acquisition of Advertising.com. Before joining AOL, Linda was a partner in the firm of Arnold & Porter, and I think she was a law firm of Arnold & Porter, and she was, I think, served as counsel to AOL, so she's had long experience with AOL. She's on the board of directors for Human Rights First, a very important organization, and also for Princeton Women in Leadership Steering Committee. And I think Sherrod may have given a talk to the Princeton Women in Leadership Conference last year. She's a Princeton graduate, class of 1982, Woodrow Wilson School, not an engineering school graduate, but I'm sure she knows a lot about engineering now in her current job. She's also a graduate of Harvard Law School. In 1998, she was named one of Washington, D.C.'s top 40 lawyers under 40. It's very easy to believe. And this is by the Washingtonian. So, Linda, thank you very much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. And as I told Vince earlier, I was a Princeton grad, class of 1982. But, you know, I have to be open and candid. I never actually took a single course in the engineering school or in the mathematics department. Little did I know that I would actually be leading a business that was really driven by engineering and mathematics. So, you know, word to all of you here at Princeton, I think I regret that I didn't take any courses when I was here. I think I was a little bit intimidated by the fact of them. But I was a Woodrow Wilson School graduate, really focused on international relations, and like I said, I didn't really know I would end up doing what I'm doing today, and particularly in the industry that I'm in today. So what I'm really here to talk to you about is first, the challenges that I face every day, being the president of this very fast-growing online advertising company, Advertising.com, in an industry and in a market that is constantly changing, constantly evolving, where consumer usage patterns are changing all the time. And just what it's been like to take this business, which was really a startup based in Baltimore, pretty small business, now has actually 800 to 900 people and almost $1 billion of revenue, and how we've been able to sort of take it to that position, really from a management perspective, and also to respond to changes in the industry. So what I was going to do was first explain to you what we do, because we're not that well known. You've all heard of Google, you've all heard of Yahoo, but you probably didn't know that we are the largest online display advertising marketplace in the United States and in Europe. So I want to first explain to you what this business does, and then what, some of the challenges that I'm facing as a leader trying to grow this business, because my mandate, and this is the mandate that both AOL and Time Warner have given me, is to really take this business, which is a great business and has great potential, and make it, a truly big business and a big force in online advertising. So first, let me tell you what we do. Advertising.com is the leading online advertising network in the United States and in Europe, and we work with thousands of websites. Basically, we go on the internet every day and we purchase huge volumes of unsold advertising space. We actually purchase 3 to 4 billion spaces every day. And then we take those spaces and we sell them to advertisers that come into our network. But the advertisers largely pay us on a performance basis. They're only paying us for a particular action or result that they want. And what's really at the core of this business is our technology, these optimization algorithms called AdLearn, which really look across our network and deliver the advertising in those spaces, impressions they're called, that are likely to deliver the results that the advertisers want. It's actually a pretty complex mathematical and engineering problem, to take these billions and billions of spaces and literally to run a dynamic business where you're constantly changing advertising in and out of these spaces. Now, I'm speaking in a very non-technical way, having never taken a course here at the engineering school. But I think you get an idea of sort of what we're doing. Our goal is really to create the world's most efficient marketplace for the buying and selling of advertising. So right now we have about 8,000 sites in this network. We have about 1,000 advertisers, and so this says 2.5 billion impressions a day. It's actually beyond that already in the past 2 weeks since I've done this. It's more like over 3 billion right now. We also offer other advertising solutions, because as this network has grown, and this is a little bit of the network effect that you see in the online economy, advertisers have been demanding other solutions from us. So we run this advertising network, this marketplace, for video advertising now. We run it for mobile advertising, and we also use our technology to do what's called search engine marketing, which is to bid across the search engines using our optimization algorithm. So we've adapted it in the search market as well. We are a publisher business. Our business is really all about the sites that we work with, the thousands of sites that come to us. If you have a website and you're trying to monetize that website to, really to make the website exist and do what you want it to do, you'll sell advertising. And what you'll usually do is work with, a company like Google to sell search advertising on your site, and thousands of sites work with us to put what's called banner or display advertising on their sites. And so we're really at the heart about creating an economy of the internet to really monetize the thousands of sites that are out there. And we're a global business. We're now in 9 European countries and Japan, and actually that's really doubled since I've been there. One of my mandates is to make this a truly global business, because this is a model that you can extend out globally. This is just again another configuration of what we do. I think I already went through this, but it's a series of networks and a series of ad-serving solutions. And this is just explaining the different advertising solutions that we offer in this network. What I really want to do is explain to you AdLearn, which is the technology that sits at the core of advertising.com. I didn't realize it was moving. This technology was developed actually by some Stanford professors, a professor named David Leuenberger in operations research at Stanford. And what's really at the core of this technology is the ability to do what's called sort of yield management or optimization. So when this business was founded, and it was actually founded 10 years ago, the goal of the founders was to create the most efficient online advertising marketplace, really the eBay, so to speak, of online advertising, the most efficient way to buy and sell online advertising. So again, what AdLearn is really doing is looking at really everything that's in this network, and it was much smaller at one point. Now again, it's 3 to 4 billion spaces a day, and in a dynamic, instantaneous way, trying to decision on where to place this advertising across the network. So AdLearn right now, again, we call it dynamic web display. It's also operating in search. It's also operating the lead generation area. It's available in 10 languages and it's across 4 continents. And here is how it works. So this is really just a rendition of, these are all the sort of ad spaces that we have. And AdLearn is basically segmenting all of the inventory in our network, looking at the traffic, allocating creatives, and also looking at the data that's coming in the ad call that's coming into our system. So looking at that data and using that data to decide where to optimize the delivery of advertising. So it's looking at consumer interactions, it's tracking consumer interactions, it's looking at anything that it can. It's looking at where it's coming from, what part of the country it's coming from, any characteristics that it can get. That it's taking that response data and it's analyzing it to determine the optimal ad placement. So voila, you have optimization. It's optimized to maximize the advertiser's demand, the advertiser's response, and to increase overall return in the network. And what it's also doing is testing. And it's actually doing it all the time. It's doing it hourly, and actually we're really doing it now every 15 minutes. So this is really a dynamic marketplace where advertising is coming in, and then ads are being placed across the network. So that's what AdLearn is. And we're constantly developing it. We have a team of about 40 mathematicians that we actually have out in Mountain View who are basically working on these algorithms every day and trying to refine them and make them even more dynamic. Our goal is to not only do this hourly, to be able to do this pretty much every minute. So how have we grown? In 2004, I just wanted to sort of give you an example of how this business has gotten bigger. And I actually joined in 2006 as the CEO. So in 2004, we had 300 advertisers. We had about 4,000 websites. We were reaching 100 million users of the internet. And when I say reach users, these are people that have seen ads that are served through our system. We had about 500 million impressions or ad segments coming through our network every day. We were offering 4 products. We were in 5 countries, about $200 million of revenue, and about 285 employees. Well, today, where are we? Today we have 1,000 advertisers participating in this network. We have 8,000 websites across the world that are working with us. We're reaching in the United States 160 million internet users, which by the way is about 90% of the US internet population. Again, this data, like I said, is now incorrect as of about a week ago. We're doing about over 3 billion impressions a day. We have more than 10 products. We're in 10 countries. We've had over 250% revenue growth and more 800 employees. So the business is now, I wouldn't call it a big business, but it's definitely a moderate-sized business. And it is a challenge, by the way, taking a business, which in 2004, even though it had 285 employees, it's still sort of a startup, to the next stage of development. And what I really want to talk to you about is, as a manager and as a leader coming into a business like this 2.5 years ago, what sort of challenges did I have? I came to this business because I think this business has the potential to be a Google. I believe it has the potential, to really be the marketplace, the dynamic marketplace to buy and sell online advertising. So how are we going to do it? What are the challenges that we're going to be faced with to actually do this as a management team? So what I was really going to do in the rest of this presentation is tell you some of the things that I've done and the challenges that I've had. Before I do that, I want to talk about the internet and what the internet is like today, because consumer usage of the internet has really changed very dramatically. Back when I was at AOL in 1999, I started in 1999 and I left AOL in just at the end of 2005. AOL was the place to be. Most internet users, consumer users, went through the portals, went to AOL, went to Yahoo, went to Microsoft. That was the way they went into the internet and interacted with the internet. It was a safe environment, and that was great. But they were really controlling, almost all online advertising. And there really were every day, only in the United States, about 5 to 6 billion available ad impressions to be sold on a given day. And almost all of those ad impressions were really concentrated in these three very large portals. And what was the result? Pricing was very high because they controlled all of the supply of advertising, so they were also able to control the demand. And what's happened today, and this literally is in the past 3 years, things are changing so much. Today, I think there's about 30 to 40 billion impressions in the United States available a day. Why is that? Where are those coming from? It's actually not coming from Yahoo and AOL and Microsoft, MSN, whose consumer traffic is sort of largely stable. It's coming from MySpace, which I think has like 9 to 10 billion ad impressions available a day on its network. It's coming from Facebook. It's coming from all the blogs, all the user-generated content, the YouTubes of the world, all of the websites, little websites that have exploded. So again, you have a situation where, in 2000, 5 billion impressions available a day, and now you have 30 to 40 billion. So what has that meant? That has meant that the way internet advertising is bought and sold has changed dramatically. It means that companies like ours, advertising.com, whose systems are designed to aggregate space like that, are very well positioned. It also means that pricing is just is gone crazy. It's sort of a disruptive event. It's we're in the middle of a disruptive event in online advertising. So pricing is going down. In some cases, I think it's too low. You're really seeing just a change in the way pricing is done because the market has been flooded with so much of a supply of advertising space. So what are our challenges? What are my challenges been? Well, the first challenge I've had is really building the right team to sort of bring this business forward. Because when I got to Baltimore to take over this business, first I was replacing the founder, a guy named Scott Ferber, who had started this business with David Leuenberger, the Stanford professor who I told you about. And he was beloved. He had put this business together. He had a mathematics and engineering background. He was one of these charismatic people. And then they had me, who had never taken any courses, even when she was at Princeton in this area, who was coming from AOL, and who was not the founder. I think I have some skills, but so what did I do? How did I take over from a charismatic founder? I actually thought about that a lot. One of the things I did was to not tarnish his reputation at all. Really just to make it really clear to the team how much I valued all that he had done and all that he had built. The last thing I was going to do was to try to tarnish his reputation. So that was something, it was a very, very deliberate thing, not to do, and to make it really clear that I couldn't replace him, that, I had skills and, I would be leading them and I hoped they would see me as their leader, but that I didn't have the same skills and wasn't trying to replace him. The other thing that's really called teamwork, trust, and collaboration. And this is really in any business. It's so important to have a team that works together, particularly if you're the CEO. You can't do everything. When you're here at Princeton as a student, you can do everything. You can control your grades and your own development as a student. But when you're running a big business, it's all in the team, and it's all in how that team works together and interacts with one another. And that the team knows very clearly what their objectives are and that they're all aligned around the same objectives. So that's something we've worked really hard at. I worked really hard to build the team that I have with me, and I love this team. It's a terrific team of people. Another part of the team, thing, I think my theory of building teams is, sometimes you end up with prima donnas, people who are in an organization who are very strong individual performers, and they'll tell you how strong they are as individual performers, but actually I think they really do damage to a team. And so you have to look at their individual contribution and weigh that against the possible sort of damage they're doing to the team and the ability for the team to succeed. So one of my approaches to management is to actually avoid prima donnas and to actually ease them out of an organization. Because it's not about individual contribution. It's not. You can't make a business succeed. You can't make anything succeed, really, unless you have the teamwork. Another learning that I've had is, what is the right team? What are the skills? I had a lot of people at this business leave. They came to me and they said, actually some of the engineers said, it's not the same anymore. It used to be I could just go into the system and make any change I wanted at any time. I said, well, we can't do that anymore. We have, hundreds of millions of dollars going through this every day. Now we have to have processes. Now we have to have systems. It's not the same And what I've said to a lot of these people is, maybe this isn't for you. You know, some people really like being in a startup environment, like the fact that everybody does everything, that, you know, it's, you know, roll up your sleeves. That's great. It's different in a bigger culture. And so you have to make sure that when you look at your team and just accept that the startup team may not be the team to take the business to the next level. Now, that being said, I've had a lot of people that have stayed with this business and have adapted, but I found some of the people that were there when it was 10 people have not been able to, you know, to really work and succeed in an organization that has 800 people. Other thing is decision making and open dialogue of your team. Not blaming people, not saying, oh, so-and-so screwed up here, so-and-so screwed up there. It almost doesn't matter. You know, what I try to do on my team is, sure, everyone's going to make mistakes, but we're not, you know, in it really to, you know, assess blame against someone else. You know, if we make a mistake, we talk about it, and then we move forward and we figure out what we're going to do to move forward. I think that's very important. I've been in a lot of organizations where people are stabbing each other in the back and are just so eager to show their own individual work. Again, this is the philosophy of a team, getting a team to work together, and it's the key to everything, any business that you're in, not only the internet business. The other is scale. Scale is really, really important, and I saw this at AOL. AOL in the 90s, you know, had scaling problems. At one point, the AOL service got so large that it just crashed overnight when they changed pricing of the AOL service. eBay had scaling problems in its early days in like 2000, 2001, where there was so much demand in the system that the system really couldn't handle the demand. We have had the same challenges at advertising.com. I just showed you in 2004 we had 500 million impressions going through this network in a day. Now I have 3 and 4 billion impressions. So I have great algorithms, but do I have the system architecture? Do I have the hardware? Do I have the infrastructure, you know, to do the data processing to really scale this business? So scaling the business is really important, and most startups that I've worked with, and I've actually purchased a lot of companies that are startups, it's not a problem you're trying to solve for in a startup. It doesn't really matter when you're a startup, you're just trying to get it going, you're trying to get it to work, you're not thinking about the day when you're running billions and billions of transactions. So how have I addressed this? First, I've actually brought in new people because a lot of my engineering team didn't have the skills to do it. What I did, interestingly, was bring a lot of people from AOL in the Northern Virginia area who had addressed these challenges at AOL and were really skilled engineers, skilled managers who knew how to build the data centers to scale, who knew how to build the architecture to scale. And there was resistance bringing those people into this organization. A lot of the people that were there during the startup phase, no, we don't want those people. I said, no, you don't understand. We can't move this business to the next level and handle these sorts of volume unless we bring them in. We need to plan for growth. We need to build the redundancies in the system. And we need to invest in things like internationalization and localization because we need to make this a global business. So scaling this business, you know, you don't think about this a lot. You know, this is, you know, not always the, you know, the most glamorous work, but it's important to being a big business. I mean, Google has done this tremendously well. You hear about their data centers and, you know, what they've built. That's all about scale and also planning for future growth. And again, when you're in a startup phase, you're not thinking about it. When you move to the next phase, you have to be able to do it. Another thing is just, you know, how do you manage the engineering team? You know, what I found when we were in the startup phase is a lot of the managers were great, but they didn't really have the skill set. They were afraid to delegate because they wanted to do everything themselves. They wanted to do all the coding themselves. They wanted to do everything themselves, and that doesn't scale either. So, you know, another challenge is bringing in the managers that know how to delegate and know how to create the processes, because again, you're trying to run a big business, not a small business. Another big challenge has been the culture. How do you take a culture? And this, we're in Baltimore, by the way, on the harbor, in an abandoned Procter & Gamble factory. It's actually a great culture. It's a bunch of young people. Everyone wears blue jeans. It's very informal. How do you keep that going? You know, you don't want to become actually like a Microsoft, which right now has a fairly bureaucratic corporate culture. You talk to people that were Microsoft in the early days, they say it wasn't like that. I was at AOL in the early days. It was a great culture. It was a great entrepreneurial culture. How do you keep that going? I actually, lose sleep over this, because I don't know any company in America, any big technology company that's kept their culture. When you think about it, Microsoft hasn't, AOL hasn't. I thought at one point Yahoo was, but you've seen all the things that have happened at Yahoo. I think probably the company that's done it the best is Apple, where they seem to still have the culture together about what the mission is of Apple and what it's trying to do. But actually this is an interesting thing from a research perspective. Who's kept that culture, this sort of startup culture and the passion? What big technology companies have? So what do? And this is what we're trying to do. And is it going to work? I don't know. But first, small teams. Always keep small teams and empower them. Make sure the teams are small, they have the ability, the power to do what they're set out to do, and that they don't get tied up in bureaucracy, and that they have to go through several different layers of hierarchy to get things done. Because if you do that, you destroy the spirit of these people, you destroy the spirit of what they're trying to do. The second thing is dedicated resources. When I was at AOL, there was a great engineering group, a great technology group, and it got huge. At one point it was 2,000 engineers, and it was a pool of 2,000 engineers that could be pulled on and called to do anything at any time. That was really bad. They were unhappy, and no one really knew what they were doing. And the project lists were just enormous. So again, what ultimately was done at AOL was to break those people down into smaller, dedicated teams and dedicate the resources. At AOL, it started out in the right way. It was a startup, but it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So again, keep dedicated resources focused around small teams. Flatten the organization. I've never, when you put too many layers in an organization, it just kills hierarchy. It kills everything. It kills innovation. So you really have to work to flatten an organization. I've never seen an organization that can't be flattened in terms of reporting relationships. One of my rules of thumb is if you see someone and their only job is really just to sort of deal with other people internally and manage, and they're not actually really doing anything, they're just part of a hierarchy of reporting, you probably don't need that layer of reporting. Bureaucracy, you need it to some extent, and actually minimize is probably the wrong word. You should say avoid. You shouldn't have bureaucracy in an organization. It's really tempting as you're getting bigger to include, to develop a bureaucracy. And then an inclusive environment. You want to make people think and know that their opinions are valued, that they're part of this together. And it's really hard as you get bigger to do that. But if you don't do it, you're going to lose the spirit, you're going to lose the culture. And the other thing is just, it's almost sort of the wackiness that is there in a startup culture. How do you sort of institutionalize that and make that continue? We do sort of crazy things in Baltimore. First, we give out awards all the time, really silly awards to people. And it's actually sort of like a team building thing. We've all challenged each other to paint the conference, to decorate the conference rooms differently. So we had a competition to see whose conference room would be better. And our conference rooms looked like a wreck. But it was really all about sort of encouraging the spirit of the team. We meet every morning, and I was telling Vince and Jane about this. We meet every morning at 9 a.m. in the United States, in every country that we're in Europe, and in Japan, and everyone in the company is invited to join this meeting. And I have to say, in Baltimore, we have 100 people that are packed in a room, and we put up the results of how the network operated the day before. It's a bunch of data, but we put up, here's what worked in the network, here were the big advertisers, here were the big websites, here's where we made money, here's where we lost money, and it's sort of the organizing force every day in this business. And that meeting is not led by me or any of the senior management, it's led by the most junior people in the company, and it's all designed about giving them ownership, that this is their business, they're driving the results. So we do that every day. It's sort of a democratizing thing. So my philosophy to management is, keep it flat, put the dedicated resources together, try to make it as democratic an organization as you can. And you know what? Be wacky. Have your own culture. If whatever it is, it's so important for people to feel like they're part of something special. And when I was here at Princeton, I felt that I was part of something special, that Princeton was a really special place, and you have to instill that in a corporate culture. Processes. Processes are not fun. Processes are ugly, but when you're running a huge organization, you have to have processes. When I went to Baltimore to take over advertising.com, again, what did I look? Our financial processes were a mess. We had these great algorithms, we had this great advertising network, but we were doing a lot of our financial stuff on a spreadsheet. It's not going to work. You can't have 4 billion transactions going through your network every day and not also have the financial and the legal processes behind that. People don't always think about that. You need to do that, and you also need to do it for compliance reasons. We're part of AOL and part of Time Warner, and so we have very strict rules and guidelines that we have to ensure that we can report up to them since they're a public reporting company. Project management. I'm going back to engineering. You have to you just can't have a bunch of dozens of technology projects, hundreds of technology projects happening at the same time without any understanding of how you're allocating resources, what's in that technology pipeline. Again, this is the unglamorous stuff. If you don't do it, you won't be able to drive innovation and results in your organization. Compensation, making sure people are compensated in a way that drives accountability. Internal reporting so that everybody can see what's going on in the business as the business gets bigger. As the business gets bigger, not everyone's going to be involved in every part of the business. In a startup, everyone's involved in everything. So you have to develop reporting that people can see and understand how the other parts of the business are doing, even if they're not involved. And then recruitment and talent acquisition. You have to plan for it, because as your organization gets bigger, it can't just be, I know this person down the street who would be interested in working here. You have to plan for your talent. Results. How do you achieve great results? This is a little bit of what I was talking about before, ownership. You have to make everyone in an organization believe that it's their results, that they can take ownership of what they're doing. We do it at advertising.com through that meeting in the mornings at 9 a.m., where that's sort of the great organizing force of the day. We do it in our compensation plans, where everyone is compensated in a way that's directly tied to what they do. I've been in other organizations where variable compensation is tied to some bigger amorphous number, and you sort of sit there in your office every day and you say, does anyone really care if my job is really going to make a difference to achieving these numbers? So people have to see that what they do is going to contribute to the success of the business, and it's going to contribute to the money that they make. It's really, really important. In a startup, people have that esprit de corps. As you get bigger, again, it's all about the small groups, the focused compensation. Transparent reporting, I talked about that already, so everybody knows what's going on. Acknowledging and learning from failures and celebrating successes. We give awards out all the time, awards for innovation. And we award innovation even if it fails to produce the desired results, because it's really important in a technology organization to keep the innovation going. And that's my last slide. How do you really drive continued innovation in a business like ours? We are in probably the most dynamically changing industry in the world right now. There is nothing more dynamic than the internet, and there's nothing changing as quickly, where there's so much investment and competition going on as internet advertising. There's also big guys in this space. We talked about Google, we talked about Microsoft, we talked about Yahoo. So how do we do it? How can we keep it going? First, you never can rest. You have to constantly be thinking about what you can be doing next, because it's this industry is changing so quickly. And in a way, that sounds like, oh my God, but you have to be. You have to be to respond to to the changes in this industry that are happening every day. There's a book called The Innovator's Dilemma, which you should read at some point. It's by a Harvard professor, and it talks about a lot of companies that were very innovative at one stage in their careers or in their development, that they stopped innovating. Why did they stop? First, they actually developed a sense that they were better than everyone else. They developed a sense that they were smarter than everyone else. After all, they're at the top of their industry. So that's really the innovator's dilemma. And if you look at a lot of companies, what you see is they reach the top, and then they're never really able to go further, or they almost become like a one-trick pony, and they're never able to develop the next innovator product. Part of it is, I think they come to believe that they are better and smarter than everyone else. So that is, I think, one trap you cannot fall into. You can't say, we're the best, our systems are better. You always have to look at what your competition is doing. And if you don't, you're going to end up being in the innovator's dilemma. You have to embrace disruption. I was talking about the internet right now and the fact that you've gone from a very small, concentrated supply of available advertising to be sold to something that's 8 to 10 times what it was a few years ago. That's disruption. And if you look at what a lot of the companies are saying, they're saying, oh, we got to get back to raising pricing, we got to get back to this. They're not embracing the disruption. They're trying to, push it away. It's not going to change. You have to look at where consumers are going, and if it seems illogical, it doesn't matter. The consumers, you have to listen to them, and you have to embrace disruption, because disruptive technologies often lead to innovation. There's also sort of a process part of innovation. As you're running a big business, everyone's really focused on the numbers, hitting the immediate results. So you have to put people in a position that they're thinking strategically, and we do strategic reviews, but we don't only do sort of organized strategic reviews where it's like, oh no, it's like that strategic review meeting that's happening on a given day. We also do impromptu reviews, just sitting down, getting people to sit down in the corner and say, how can we respond to what's going on today? And what we're doing in our business, by the way, is trying to make this even more automated and even more self-service. Because what really I think is going to take this business forward to make it truly the most efficient marketplace is not only to have, like I have a sales team that sells this advertising, but really to make it as self-service as possible, make it as open as possible, have as many people being given the ability to enter this marketplace and to buy and sell advertising. And then lastly, how do you determine the best way to expand? It's not only by building products and businesses internally. You need to do a lot of that, but also you need to look at acquisitions. And I've done several acquisitions in the past 2 years. Since I've been here, I actually did one on Monday. I bought a company in Newcastle, England, that does a type of advertising really in the e-commerce area called affiliate marketing. And I actually looked all over the world for the best company and the best platform and found it all the way up in northern England. So that was an instance where we decided it was best to expand by acquisition rather than by internal development. And acquisitions are really, really hard. By the way, I ran mergers and acquisitions for years at AOL. It's actually very easy to acquire the companies. You get a financial spreadsheet, you do your valuation, you buy the company, but then you own it, and you have to figure out how do you integrate the business. And integration is really the hard thing. And I have found after being a finance person and running the numbers that it's actually very old-fashioned. It's all about, it's like getting married. It's like, actually, can I work with these people? Can I work with these people? Do we think alike? Do we have the same culture? Because if you don't, it's going to fail. I guarantee you it's going to fail. You can run all the numbers that you want, but if the teams can't work together, it won't succeed. So I work very hard, and I've had, I think, mixed results here to try, when I buy companies, to integrate them and to bring the businesses together. And again, in the news this week, you hear a lot about the Microsoft bid for Yahoo, and one of the concerns there is really, can you actually integrate those businesses? Can you integrate those cultures? I don't think you can. I mean, I saw this at the Time Warner AOL merger where you put two dramatically different cultures together, and you never really were able to sort of work together as a team. And I think if I were at Microsoft today, I'd be very concerned. What's going to happen if I make this bid for Yahoo and it takes 1.5 years for the deal to close because it has to go through antitrust review in the U.S. and in Europe? First, during that 1.5 years, probably everyone at Yahoo will leave, or a lot of people will leave. How do you then pick up the pieces and keep going? So it's really a challenge. I'm not a person that doesn't support acquisitions. That was my I did mergers and acquisitions for a long time. But I think you have to be really careful and selective about what you do and how you do it. So that's really all I wanted to talk about in a formal way. But again, just to give you a sense about what it's like for me on a day-to-day basis, running this large technology company, and it's it's very challenging. It's very exciting. It's really all about bringing the teams together and having the ability to constantly drive innovation in a changing market. So that's my formal presentation. I don't know if you have any questions.
Evelyn take?
Absolutely. Please ask questions. I will be sad if you don't. Yes?
How do you, with smaller teams, how do you get them to work together? What's the way that you make them interface work?
That's interesting. I mean, a lot of teams have their own plans as to what they have to do, and they're really, almost required to work together. One of the things is we reward collaboration, and so if teams are really working together, I literally give monetary awards to people. We sort of point that out and we celebrate it. So that's one of the things that we do. The one thing is for the teams not to feel like they're competing with one another. That would destroy things. Yes?
You mentioned you have significant international presence.
Mm-hmm.
How do you decide what's the next country to go to, and then what does it actually take to make it happen?
That's a great question. And I go back to the basics of supply and demand. So what we do is, what we've been doing is looking at each market and seeing first where there is enough of a supply of advertising impressions to be purchased, but then at the same time looking to see whether there's enough demand if you come into this market that you will have local advertisers that are willing to bid and buy for the advertising. The reason I went to Japan, which is actually Japan is the second largest market in the world for online advertising, but it's not actually growing that much. Internet usage isn't growing in Japan. It's high concentration of internet usage. Was that the supply and demand were a pretty good balance. You had a lot of supply of advertising and you had a lot of demand for advertising. I've actually held off on going into China because right now when you look at the Chinese market, there's huge supply of advertising impressions, but the demand is still very, very small. So the way our marketplace works, if you're there, it really, it won't really work that well if there's not a good source of demand. Now that being said, you have to go there. You have to go there. You have to go to China. You have to go to India. But it's just about sort of when you don't want to go when someone else is there, and then you've lost the ability to really make a defined presence in the market. But in terms of sort of money, I went to Japan first because I knew I could make money there and use it as a jumping off point for the rest of Asia. So again, I just go back to supply and demand.
What does it take to get started there?
So what you have to do to start this business going is you first have to start buying advertising inventory. So you actually have to go and almost stockpile it for a little while because you can't open for business and then not have anything to sell. So it's almost like a stock market. And you're trying to create a trading environment, so you have to go in and basically lose a lot of money for a few months. So we look at things analytically and say, okay, if we go in and we start buying, how much, when can we start making money? When can we start turning on the demand after we build up a sufficient source of supply? So it's a risk. You got to go in and say, okay, I know I'm going to lose money, but I know that these systems work, and I know that I'll be able to get this marketplace going. So we do an economic analysis, but even financial analyses, and actually this is something about innovation, they don't always tell you everything. And you can't be just, everybody can do discounted cash flow analysis and forecast, P&Ls and all that, but at the end of the day, if you know it's going to work, I would say do it. Because you can't, in this industry, particularly in the internet, you can't predict what's going to be a success. So I think you can't always listen to what your financial analytics tell you. So even China, I look at China now. I'll tell you, it's not going to work in the short term, but I know I have to be there in the long term. So it's just a matter of when. Yeah.
Do you buy based on performance? In other words, only pay when you perform, because that's the way you sell?
You can do that. I mean, part of the model of advertising.com was to take the risk out of advertising. So for all the websites that we were working with, to basically say, you don't have to take the risk that your advertising is going to go unsold because we will just pay you a flat fee for it. But with a lot of the sites that we work with, we'll either do it on a revenue share basis or, yes, I mean, I would rather only pay if it performs. But for the sites, I'm willing to take the risk that it's not going to perform because these algorithms are so powerful that they enable me to take that risk and to still make money. Yes?
To put on your intellectual property lawyer hat.
Okay, I'm such a
multi-billion-dollar industry assumes the right that they can put their ads on my PC screen.
Mm-hmm.
If I create an engine
that looks at my TCP IP stream and throws away all your banner ads and all your links, just dumps them and just keeps all my content that I want. Or if I get incentivized to replace your banner ads with somebody who's willing to pay to put their banner ads in that nice little spot, what gives you the right to say you can't do that?
Well, I mean, you could. I mean, we're working with the site. We provide a service to the sites. You know, the sites are contracting with us, and so, you know, they want us. I'm not going in and hijacking their sites and putting advertising on their site.
Right.
So, you know, you're saying, can I sort of...
Can I, as a PT owner, do a deal with somebody that incentivizes me, that says, in return for putting this little engine inside my PC, that takes your banner ads and throws them away, and puts their banner ads in place, I will be rewarded.
I mean, I guess you could. It's not the way the internet has evolved. I mean, you could be a gatekeeper in effect. And by the way, where that's happening now is in mobile advertising, where the carriers, the big U.S. carriers, because we also run this business in a mobile environment, where the carriers are saying, I'm the gatekeeper. You know, you can't get. You know, I'm going to place the ads. I'm going to do everything. Not the sites that you're trying to get to, you know, through your web browser or through your iPhone, and they're saying we're gonna do it. I think ultimately it's not going to succeed. It didn't succeed in the internet either, but I mean, you could. You definitely could try that. I think you'd see an uproar from like thousands of websites saying, you know, you're taking it's our right to sort of monetize our site. I mean, that's our livelihood. But I mean, you could do it. Work with us if you do it.
Linda, you can't come to Princeton without leaving with something orange and black.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.